Gentlemen, there's another very interesting tie-in with TJ. He's related to Corey Seager. His mom's maiden name is Seager. TJ, fill in the blank, if you will, on that.
Okay. Corey's dad and I are first cousins, and we're like brothers. There's the four of us that played college ball that were really, really tight. So obviously I was able to watch Corey grow up as a young man and then go through the minors. I was able to go watch him in Memphis and Little Rock as he went up the ranks with the Dodgers in the minors. And then, get to go watch him in Little Rock. I'm sorry, in St. Louis. And obviously now that he's in Texas, but I've had a really enjoyable ride. I was out there to watch him in Game 3. And it's just been very exciting being tight. And now he's in Texas.
Yeah.
So that's really exciting too.
Yeah, and they got the new stadium out there now too. So I bet he really likes that. That's a nice stadium.
Yeah. TJ, it's interesting because both gentlemen that you're talking to, they reside in Texas, and they've adopted. Obviously, the Yankees are in their heart because of their dads, but they've adopted the Texas Rangers very near and dear to their heart, and they were, celebrating along with everybody else, and it was great to see. It really was. Yeah. Well deserved. And Corey, Corey was the linchpin.
I'd love to just say he's got a hell of a swing, because I saw him hit a couple of those homers, and just a nice.
You know what, too? He's also cousins with Kyle Seager, who played for the Mariners. I mean, could you just stop and think, Billy, as an agent, you're a baseball agent. Could you imagine if the Yankees would have signed somewhere along the line, either as a free agent or drafted them, Corey and Kyle for the left side of the infield, because Kyle was no slouch either. And he had a swing, TJ, perfect for Yankee Stadium, if I'm not mistaken.
They both did or do. But
absolutely. So here's an odd story. I actually got to meet their father. I sat with him at a spring training game in Arizona. Ironically, do you guys remember when Will Ferrell?
Yes,
played?
He was with the Dodgers then. Yes, you were at those games.
Got to go. I was just happened to be at 3 different games that day that Will Ferrell played in.
Right.
And met your cousin. Yeah. And sat with him, and man, what a nice man. We were talking about so many things that I said, well, what's it like having 2 sons? Because here you're an East Coast guy and you've got 2 sons playing on the West Coast. And he said, Billy, he goes, I've got a big screen, 2 big screens in my living room, 2 big screens in my bedroom. We have the games going all the time. But of course, think about it. West Coast games, the 7 o'clock games don't start until 9 o'clock at night in New York or in Carolina where they live. So he's like, the games are going into 1 o'clock at night.
1 o'clock, 1:30. Yeah.
Yeah. And
now
so
he has him in his bedroom.
And he's like, we don't want to miss an at bat. We don't want to miss a play in the field. So we're watching everything. And then, he said, my dream would just be for them one day to either be on the same team or God, be at a better time zone would be awesome too. And then when Corey signed with the Rangers, I remember they were talking to Kyle.
Yeah.
And then that all just disappeared because, until Josh Young really solidified himself last year, I thought it would have been a perfect kind of way to let the 2 brothers play next to each other and let Kyle show Josh kind of the ropes of being a big leaguer. Have you ever heard why those talks stalled and what happened there? Because I just remember thinking about their dad, thinking, oh, his dream's about to come true. And then it all went away.
What happened, Bill, was he's got 3 young children, and he was ready to go home and be a dad. And like we had already mentioned in regard to the family, we're dairy farmers in upstate New York. It goes back to our grandparents. So he was just, obviously he doesn't have to worry about making money doing that, but he's doing that. It's a hobby, and he's coaching his 9-year-old son. And he's just with, he got 2 beautiful little girls, and he's happy. I saw him at the World Series, and he was really, really happy. Of course, he never got to go to the postseason. That's one regret. But as far as not missing the game, it's just, and it's hard for me to fathom, because I would love to have played. But you know what? He just says the grind was, he was ready. So, you know, he got the 10-year, the big deal, and then he was done, and that was it. So he's very
he
happy.
had a great career.
Yes, sir. Well, I mean, you look at his numbers, other than the 3 guys in front of him, 2 are in the Hall and 1 will be there. You know, you got Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., and Ichiro. He's right there.
Oh yeah,
most of the
big fan.
Danny, Rose has a cute story to tell, because when she was working in Manhattan, she's working in New York City. She almost got fired because she waited 2 hours to get your dad's autograph. Yeah, if you can, Rose, and then tell the PS to the story with your uncle.
Okay, so yeah, it was he was doing a book tour of the Mick, so I only had an hour for lunch, but I waited online 2 hours, hoping I wasn't going to get caught, and people were covering for me. And I got his autograph, and I was afraid I was going to get fired, or in trouble, but I didn't. So a couple of like a week or so later, I was telling my Uncle Nick, and I said, I waited online and I got Mickey Mantle's autograph, and he pulls out some pictures of him and Mickey playing golf, and he goes, "Oh yeah, I golf with Mickey a couple of times a week." And I was like, well, here I am.
Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that was, he enjoyed doing those signings and stuff so much, because he'd tell some people, they'd come up and start reciting his, some season, and he'd be like, hell, you know more than me, and so
still I'm hanging in there to his 500th home run. I remember where I was that day that he hit it. It's one of those iconic moments that you remember where you are. Some of them are tragic, some of them are sports related, and that was one of my happy sports related moments where I remember where I was when he hit his 500th home run, listening on my transistor radio at my aunt's house in New Jersey. And I didn't get to see it. Now I can see it thanks to the internet, but I got to hear it, and that was great. And at the time,
that was one of his favorite things, because he was on a drive streak there for a while before he got to the 500.
yes. Yeah.
And it was Mother's Day, and he'd called home and told my mom, he said, "I'm going to hit the home run today for you." And he actually did. So it was great.
Rick, we want to wish you a very, very happy Thanksgiving. Thank you for jumping on and spending, a couple of minutes with us tonight.
Thanks, guys, and Godspeed to you all.
Thank you.
Godspeed to you.
1988, we went to Florida, and it was by mid-March 1988. And we went to watch a spring training game against the White Sox. Billy was the manager of that team, 1988. Billy was the manager. It was a cold evening, really cold. The old people were shaking the frosties. I was shaking too, but I was not shaking because of the cold. I was shaking because I was watching him on the field. It was incredible to watch him. Then the managers were coaching on third base. Box, I don't think you remember. Not like today that the managers spend all the game in the dugout, and we got the first base coach and the third base coach. But those days, sometimes the manager went to the third base box to coach the game, and Billy did it in those game in that game. Sorry for my English. It's not my
Oh, that's fine.
language. Okay. Well, I was watching Billy, as I told you. I was really shaking because of that, and not because of the cold. And there was a moment, precious second, when we were really near from the Yankees dugout, and Billy and I made eye contact. It was no, I remember my skin.
Goosebumps.
Yes, goosebumps. Yes, that's right. Because it was incredible. Maybe it lasted just 2 or 3 seconds, but we made eye contact, and it was incredible. I never forget that.
Well, that's a great story because
Wow.
obviously he's one of my, I mean, he is my all-time favorite, but yeah, that's a great story. I know Billy loves hearing that. So
Absolutely.
Really, that was a beautiful story, Jorge.
Yeah.
No kidding. Thanks,
it
Jorge.
really was.
Everybody wanted to be Mickey Mantle. He was great. He was just unbelievable. What a player, and the guts he showed. And I had this might touch Danny's heart here. I saw your father in person. My friend and I used to go to a lot of Yankee games. A bunch of us used to, and we knew where they came out at the end of the day. It's the parking lot, and we used to get autographs. Well, your dad came out one day and he was standing about 10 feet away, and my friend and I just looked, and I was about 16 years old, I'm going to say, and he's pushing me, asking for his autograph. Well, I went over there, but it didn't work out. There were other people there in the way, and but I got close to Mickey Mantle, and I thought that was just unbelievable.
thank you.
Also, I used to have 2 clippings of your father, and I kept them in my wallet all the time as a teenager. And I went to Vietnam, and I got wounded, and I had a little wallet that we used to keep in a plastic bag so the wallet wouldn't get ruined, you know. So we have look at your mom's picture or your girlfriend's picture. Yeah. So I had my mom, my girlfriend, my nieces, and I had 2 little pieces of paper, and there were 2 articles about your father.
Yeah.
So as I was bleeding to death on the battlefield, I had my mom's picture, my niece's picture, my girlfriend's picture, and 2 articles of your father. I wound up in a hospital in Japan, and I'm in bed. The guy next to me, he wakes up. Eventually, we see each other. We're talking, and he's from Oklahoma. And he's telling me that he used to see your dad, not all the time, but every once in a while, you know, when he was a kid, wherever he lived, whatever it was. And we talked about your dad for about an hour. But the 2 pieces of paper I had that I kept, I must have had them in my wallet 5 or 6 years, was one of your dad's in the Daily News, and he was all taped up. And it said above it, "What price glory?" In other words, he used to play hurt all the time. They would tape his legs up and such. And the other article was Al Kaline is signing autographs in Detroit in a department store, and some little kid comes up to him and goes, "Hey, you're not half as good as Mickey Mantle." And Al Kaline says, "Hey kid, nobody's half as good as Mickey." What a privilege. Billy Martin, Billy Ball, what an attitude, just great. And Mickey Mantle, he was a demigod to me. He was something so special that I said I had his clippings in my wallet. It was just so privileged to meet these 2 guys and to say, God bless your fathers, and God bless the Yankees, and God bless America. How about that?
That sounds really good, and thank you. Thank you, Don.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call you Danny. Is that all right?
That's fine. Thank you for your service too, sir. That's
all right. Thank you.
Danny hit it on the head. He said, "Thank you for your service." I'm going to speak for Danny and for Billy because I know your story a little. I know your story. They don't. They just heard a little bit of it. And Danny, I'm glad you said that. Thank you for your service because Danny and Billy, what I want to say is when Donald was telling the story about Mickey's press clipping in his wallet, he mentioned that he was bleeding to death, and that's not hyperbole. He was not only in Vietnam, he was in the Tet Offensive, which was the height, escalated the height of the Vietnam War. And when he was medevaced to Japan. Just as he's saying, it's just such a story that ties things together. So he's laying and potentially bleeding to death, laying in a hospital bed, and the guy next to him is from Oklahoma, and they have nothing in common. Hey, where are you from? I'm from New York. Where are you from? I'm from Oklahoma. He says, I'm a Yankee fan. And the guy from Oklahoma goes, yeah, me too. How are you? Right. And it's because of Mickey Mantle. But so what I want to say, Donald, is it's a thrill, for you to meet these two gentlemen, and
It really is.
magical. But at the same time, we want to say to you, thank you for your service, because the word hero is thrown around a lot. And in a sports context, there were no better heroes than their dads. We want to say to you, you're a real life hero. We want to thank you for your service. A couple of times, guys, he had to take a sip of water and whatnot. Not only comes back, okay, he's a decorated FDNY. He was digging on the pile after 9/11. Okay. So you can make a movie out of his life. So Donald, we want to thank you. I want to thank you for your service and thank you for your time tonight.
Hey, thank you, Michael. God bless you.